Good evening, and welcome to Texas News Primetime. For Monday, April 3rd, I'm Paisley Porter.
And I'm Julia Mia. Thank you for joining us.
For Primetime on campus, the University of Texas officially offered interim head coach Rodney Terry a 5-year contract as the full-time head coach of the men's basketball team last Monday. While he was associate head coach, Terry took over the team when former head coach Chris Beard was fired on January 5th over a domestic assault charge that was eventually dropped. During this time, Terry led the Texas men's basketball team to the Elite Eight of the NCAA March Madness tournament for the first time since 2008. This will be his third head coaching position in Division I men's basketball, as he previously head coached for both Fresno State and UT El Paso. Researchers in UT FizBrain Lab developed the first commercial blood test in the United States to test traumatic brain injury, or TBI. According to KXAN, this lab test, called Alinity, is able to reveal elevated levels in blood indicators that are highly correlated with TBIs. The test, approved by the Food and Drug Administration, is hoped to reduce the need for CT scans in diagnosing a TBI. A new study in collaboration with Abbott Laboratory will soon determine the effectiveness of Alinity-I in children. It's been an action-packed week on the 40 acres. Here is a quick recap of what's been happening. The Clyde Littlefield, Texas relays were hosted Wednesday through Saturday at the Mike A. Myers Track and Soccer Stadium. Track and field athletes from several universities took part in the 4-day competition. The Longhorn Run, 5K, and 10K were hosted on Saturday. The race course ran through UT's campus and nearby areas, with students, families, staff, alumni, and more taking part in the tradition. Texas Performing Arts Broadway in Austin hosted the national tour of Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations, last week, Tuesday to Sunday, at the Bass Concert Hall. Students and Austin audiences came out to see this Tony Award-winning musical.
For Primetime locally, this past weekend, country music lovers came to Austin for the CMT Music Awards and the exciting events that led up to the award show. On Saturday, CBS's Austin's Trevor Scott hosted a free block party for those that didn't have tickets to the show. Fans and stars filled the Moody Center on Sunday with performances from Gwen Stefani, Carrie Underwood, and Keith Urban. This was the first time the award show was hosted in the city of Austin, widely considered the live music capital of the world rather than its home of Nashville. Some of our own TSTV reporters from our sister show, Good Morning Longhorns, were at the red carpet and event. For more coverage on the CMT Awards, tune in to Good Morning Longhorns this Wednesday at 7 a.m. Calling all counselors, the Austin Police Department Victim Service Unit is offering free trauma training to Austin counselors in exchange for providing 50 sessions to trauma survivors over the course of the next 3 years. This trauma training is called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This therapy is centered around assessing the emotions and symptoms that are a result of traumatic events and helps the brain's information processing system move naturally toward healing. Clients will be referred to counselors by the APD Victim Service and staff. A second body has been pulled from Lady Bird Lake. Since Jason John was pulled from Lady Bird Lake on February 13th, his friends and family have called for more surveillance and lighting on the trail near Rainey Street. However, on March 31st, Jonathan Honey was reported missing and later found in Lady Bird Lake near 10 Rainey Street this past Saturday. Investigations surrounding Honey's death are underway. If you have any information about the incident, contact APD. If you go to Rainey Street, be sure to travel with a group and be aware of your surroundings.
A Texas federal district court judge ruled to reinstate certain books onto public library shelves within the next 24 hours. The initial removal was due to books being deemed inappropriate because of their themes surrounding race and the LGBTQ+ community by residents within the Llano County. The books being reinstated to shelves include, quote, Case to the Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson, They Called Themselves the KKK, The Birth of the American Terrorist Group by Susan Campbell Bartelli, and Being Jazz, My Life as a Transgender Teen by Jazz gangs. A man was shot and killed last Wednesday after stealing a truck from Northside San Antonio. According to the San Antonio Police Department, the truck's owners tracked down the thief using an Apple AirTag left in the vehicle. The alleged shooter claims the man had a weapon in the vehicle and has yet to face charges due to pending investigation. The Texas House State Affairs Committee has passed 2 proposed bills that would expand gambling access in Texas. Currently, gambling is largely illegal in Texas, with it being considered a criminal offense in most contexts. However, House Bill 2843 and 1942 would legalize casino gambling and online sports betting if approved by voters. The bills are currently awaiting further discussion and more voting to be formally approved by Texas law.
For Primetime Nation, this past Tuesday, former President Donald Trump was indicted by a New York grand jury. Trump faces more than 30 accounts related to business fraud. Despite the indictment, which will go on throughout 2023, Trump vowed to continue his 2024 presidential bid and has denied any wrongdoing, stating, quote, "I believe this witch hunt will backfire massively on Joe Biden. We are going to throw every last one of these crooked Democrats out of office," end quote. Trump is currently in New York for his expected appearance tomorrow. In other news, the Illinois Senate has approved legislation that prevents the smell of marijuana from being used as probable cause to search a vehicle or passengers. The bill will not change the state's laws surrounding impaired driving, meaning that operating a vehicle while under the influence of marijuana is still illegal. In addition to Illinois expanding their marijuana market, the governor of Illinois pardoned 500,000 people with low-level cannabis convictions on their records, as well as created a state-funded initiative to help residents have their records expunged. Lastly, a recent report from the U.S. Energy Information Administration announced Monday that electricity generated from renewable energy surpassed coal in the United States in 2022. Furthermore, coal is projected to decline in usage by nearly 17% for this upcoming year. Growth in infrastructure to support the collecting and usage of renewable energy is vital to maintaining renewable energy growth. However, this change won't come without difficulties. Stephen Porter, professor of ecology at Brown University, commented that, quote, "Existing energy grids were built to deliver power from a consistent source, so battery storage, long-distance transmission, and other steps will be needed to help address these challenges," end quote.
For Primetime World, Vladimir Tatarsky, a well-known Russian military blogger, was killed Sunday in a St. Petersburg cafe bombing. Tatarsky had more than 560,000 followers on Telegram and was famous for championing Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. The explosion wounded 25 other people and is the second assassination of a prominent figure associated with the war on Russian soil. American Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was detained in Russia on Tuesday after accused of being in espionage. Gershkovich is believed to be the first American journalist to be detained as a spy in Russia since the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Wall Street Journal denies these allegations, and the White House calls Russia's actions unacceptable. Finland is expected to be the 31st member to join NATO, the largest military alliance in the world, this Tuesday. This expansion of NATO has prompted Russia to issue a warning against deploying any NATO troops near the joint border. Finland's foreign minister, Pekka Haavisto, says, quote, "The most important objective at this meeting will be to emphasize NATO support to Ukraine as Russia continues its illegal actions," end quote.
For Primetime Verifies, the Texas legislature is considering many bills related to higher education. And Senator Brandon Creighton recently called universities, quote, "taxpayer-funded institutions." However, looking at the breakdown of where UT Austin's money comes from, the largest portion comes from tuition, at 20%. Taxpayer money contributes to the state's General Appropriations Act, which allocates some funds to higher education, but only 10% of UT Austin's budget comes from this Appropriations Act. Property taxes in Travis County also contribute to Dell Medical School. However, this only makes up 1% of the university's annual budget. Be sure to check out our PrimeTime's YouTube after the show for a full breakdown of UT's annual budget. Next up, after the break, we'll have Sophia Kurtz coming on for business and Ariba Barmel telling us about STEM. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
I'm Hope Vanderberg here at TSTV News headquarters, and you're watching Texas News Primetime.
How are you?
I am wonderful. Well, Sophia, why don't you bring us up to date in the world of business this past week?
Sure thing. So Virgin Orbit marketed an affordable way to sell small satellites to space is on verge of bankruptcy. The company originally had an evaluation of $4 billion in December of 2021, but has plummeted to $74 million this month. The company has lost of The company has laid off almost all of its workforce and has also stated that it will cease all operations, quote, for the foreseeable future, end quote. The company was unable to reach the launch rate required to generate the revenue it needed to stay in business. In other news, Trump-related stocks have risen significantly after the former president's indictment. Rumble and Funware, companies that were involved in the 2020 election, and Truth Social, respectively, have risen 3%. Finally, a Digital World acquisition company looking to merge with Trump's media firm rose a massive 10%, according to CNN. Only time will tell if the stocks continue to rise as more information about the Trump indictment comes to light. Finally, for this week, Disney appears to be outmaneuvering Ron DeSantis in terms of control of their district. Disney's district board, named the Reedy Creek Improvement District, was given the same control as the county government in an attempt to give Disney World more power over their land. DeSantis removed this ability this year in an attempt to control the area. The board's agreement gives Disney control over the area again, denies use of their brand by DeSantis, and lastly, quote, until perpetuity or until 21 years later after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of England's King Charles III, end quote.
Thanks, Sophia, for coming on. Now, with this week's STEM, we have Ariba Barmel. Thank you for coming on today, Ariba. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Paisley?
I'm very good. All right, Ariba, tell us about what's been going on in the world of STEM lately.
Of course. Utah has become the first state to limit social media access for teenagers. Utah's Governor Spencer Cox signed 2 measures into law Thursday requiring social media firms to get parental consent consent for children to use these apps. The bills will give parents full access to their children's social media accounts, including posts and private messages. They will also impose a social media curfew that blocks minors' access to social media between 10:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m., unless otherwise adjusted by their parents. Social media companies will also be blocked from collecting minors' data. This legislation will take effect on March 1st of 2024, and several other states, including Texas, are considering similar regulations. Cybersecurity experts say a popular Chinese shopping app, Pinduoduo, has the ability to spy on its users. The e-commerce app that has over 750 million users a month can bypass users' cell phone security to check notifications, read private messages, change settings, and monitor activities on other apps. Company insiders say these features and exploited vulnerabilities in Android systems were used to spy on users and competitors to boost sales. While there's no evidence that the app has handed data to the Chinese government, American lawmakers are expressing concerns. Researchers find that lethal supercell storms will strike more frequently in southern states as warming increases. A new study by the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society predicts a nationwide 6.6% increase in supercell storms, but also predicts that the storm will edge eastward and hit more populous southern states like Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. According to the lead author of the study, Walker Ashley, supercells are, quote, nature's ultimate storms, end quote, that can last hours and are significant producers of tornadoes and hail. They were responsible for 51 deaths in a 2013 Oklahoma tornado, 161 deaths in a 2011 Missouri tornado, and deaths as well in the 2011 super outbreak across multiple states.
Thanks for coming on, Nariba. Next up, after the break, we'll have Alec Alvarez coming on for our segment of Press Box on Primetime for all your sports needs. So stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly.
I'm Madeline Lambert here at TSTV News headquarters, and you're watching Texas News Primetime.
Welcome back to Texas News Primetime. Here now for our segment of Press Box on Primetime, we have Alec Alvarez. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I am wonderful. Why don't you tell us about what's been going on in sports this past week?
Let's dive into it. It's been an eventful week. So LSU defeated the University of Iowa in the women's NCAA national title game by a score of 102-85. This marked LSU's first national title in their program's history, and LSU's Angel Reese was named the most outstanding player of the tournament. As for the men's side, the men's national title game is tonight as UConn takes on San Diego State. UConn defeated Miami on Saturday night, while San Diego State defeated Florida Atlantic University via a dramatic dramatic buzzer beater for them to meet tonight in the title game, with Dallas hosting the women's Final Four and Houston hosting the men's Final Four this past weekend. The state of Texas looks to continue its busy slate of sports programming this week, with the San Antonio Spurs playing 2 games here in Austin at Moody Center throughout the week, along with the United States women's national soccer team playing a friendly match here at Austin FC's Q2 Stadium this Friday.
This year marked the most successful women's NCAA tournament in history by the numbers. Most television views ever, highest ticket revenue ever, and incredible success across social media and coverage. What do you make of this?
Yes, so it's honestly a great thing for women's sports. The most coverage it's gotten as opposed to previous years, and the most views on TV and the most social media engagement and whatnot. I think it really speaks to how the name, image, and likeness rules around college athletics have allowed a lot of these athletes to really shine, especially female athletes who oftentimes command a better social media following. Like dudes aren't going to get L'Oreal to give them a deal, an NIL deal for makeup. I'm not going to pull up with makeup on with my lashes on fleek, So it's great to see these female athletes put in work and really get the recognition that they deserve. And Caitlin Clark, a generational talent, really did well for the women's game this year in the tournament. And Angel Reese, deservingly so, got the most outstanding player of the tournament. And she's elevated the game as well, so it's cool to see.
Absolutely. And where do you rank March Madness in terms of the best sporting events in the world?
That is a tough question. There's so many incredible sporting events in the world. Honestly, for me, the World Cup is number one, because where else do you generate such patriotism for all these countries across the entire globe? And it's every 4 years, and it's such a big deal. But honestly, March Madness is probably the most unpredictable sporting event in the world, given that for example, this year, the 2 teams in the final, no one would have guessed that they were going to get there. No one's ever had a perfect bracket in March Madness. It's just truly chaos, and for me, the unpredictability of it makes it honestly one of the best in the world. But I won't give it the best. I'll give that to the World Cup.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on today, Alec. Next up, after the break, we'll have Trent Lamb bring us up to date in entertainment. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
I'm Julia Mia at TSTV headquarters, and you're watching Texas News Primetime.
Welcome back to Texas News Primetime. Here, bringing us up to date in entertainment news, we have Trent Lamb. How are you doing today, Trent?
I'm doing fantastic. I can't wait to talk about these stories.
All right, Trent. Why don't you tell us about what's been going on this past week?
Of course. On Thursday, jurors in Park City, Utah found actress and Goop founder Gwyneth Paltrow not guilty in a ski collision back in 2016. The trial was brought on by Terry Sanderson, an optometrist who suffered broken ribs and a concussion after a collision between the two. Sanderson was suing for $300,000, with Paltrow countersuing for $1. After the unanimous verdict, a new date will be found to decide the final award for Paltrow.
You know, that's really funny. She sued for $1. Props to her. I was about to be like, why does Gwyneth Paltrow need any money from any type of lawsuit ever? Why did this become such a sensational trial for people? Like, why was everyone talking about it on TikTok and everything?
Yeah, I think it's just because Gwyneth Paltrow, she was, this big, huge, famous actress, and this Goop stuff, people have been kind of finding it funny. Also, a lot of people have been joining it, and I think a lot of people just love a great celebrity trial. I mean, every year there's always the new big one, so I think this year it's been this Gwyneth Paltrow one.
For sure. I think it really reminds us that celebrities are people too.
And secondly, the long-running video game conference E3 has officially been canceled. The announcement comes a year after it was announced it would be returning for 2023. With studios like PlayStation and Xbox beginning to drop out before the cancellation, plus a significant decrease in popularity, E3 decided to pull the plug. No plans have been announced for a return in any format.
Man, that's crazy. I will say the most video games I play has been Wii Sports or Just Dance. But I know a lot of people that take gaming really seriously, so this is kind of sad. And I really hope anyone that was looking forward to it gets it made up somehow.
Yeah, I really hope it for them because, everyone loves E3, everyone loves the video games, and I think getting rid of this huge conference really upset a lot of people. But, all these studios have their own little, services to where you can see their announcements as well.
Awesome.
And lastly, a recent profile on best-selling fantasy author Brandon Sanderson has caused an uproar in the book community. The piece, written by Jason Keehee for Wired magazine, insulted Sanderson's religious undertones within his books, as well as his family's eating habits. He ended the profile by stating, quote, "If Sanderson is a writer, that is all he is doing. He is living his fantasy of Godhead on earth," end quote. After the story was released, significant backlash was directed toward Keehee for the insults he threw at Sanderson. Wired has yet to release a comment.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess writers are allowed to write what they want to write, and if someone gets upset about it, it's also kind of hard to prove that maybe he was writing it about specifically that one man or so. I don't know about you. As we all know, we're all Swifties on the show, so I think we all reserve the right of, we love hearing about people writing about their ex-boyfriends, their enemies, so, this also might have just been a ploy. But who knows?
Yeah, I think a lot of people love this author, and a lot of the fans were really upset that someone would come in, especially this is the first big profile ever done on him, and he would just come in bashing him instead of, actually getting to talk to the person.
For sure. But you know what they say, tea sells. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Trent. And as always, you can follow Texas News Primetime and TSTV News on social media just by searching. Also, take us with you on the go by subscribing to our podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. From all of us here at TSTV News, thank you for starting your evening with us. Now go out and change your world.